What's up guys, it's Manga Time once again. I'm here today to bring you my review of Bleach Volume 64, Death in Vision. First of all, I just want to say thank you very much for the really great response to me finally coming back off hiatus. Was it last week? I think it was last week I did the review of 63. That was really nice. We were kind of ironing out some kinks. I'd run out of phone memory space, so the review was cut short. This week should be a little better. Bit of a shame, because this volume is not as good as the last one. Let's crack straight into it. Death in Vision, Volume 64. Gremmy on the cover, Sternritter V. This cover, not great. I mean, I get what Kubo's going for. The whole Gremmy's human body is not a real construct. But there's a lot of white on this cover. Add to the fact again that Kubo's gone for mostly the whole thing is pink for some reason, and it's honestly just the complete opposite of eye-catching. It's quite bland. I don't really like it. It's nowhere near as striking as the Asnot cover that we had last time. There are some nice touches. I like how his eye is just sort of floating there. Again, stylistically, I get what Kubo was going for. But I think it's maybe the pink. It makes the whole thing look rather washed out and just a bit bland. So not a great start to a pretty average volume. If I'm completely honest with you, basically, no, there's no basically about it. The entire volume is Gremmy versus Kenpachi. So much so that the All Stars are actually missing 2 slots because, well, there's just nothing else happening in this volume. Gremmy, Kenpachi, Isane, and Yachiru. I think this is probably the only time Isane is ever in the All Stars. I don't know. Maybe she's in another one, but as far as I'm aware, it's just that one. Yeah. So literally the whole volume is this fight. We start off with Yachiru and Isane versus Gwenael. Now, I just want to make a quick point about Gwenael that I almost certainly made in my review back in the day, but he was actually, despite his rather horrible design, he's actually quite a well thought out Sternritter in terms of his ability. He pretends to be Sternritter V, the Vanishing Point, and his ability is quite simple. He's got 3 stages to it, but the idea is that he can phase in and out of reality essentially, and as he does so, people forget about him, and then he comes back. And I thought it was clever, and I thought it was really well thought out. Gwenael has a unusual amount of inner thoughts for such a minor character. Again, this is another example of Kubo just being a bit weird with his characterization. Like, why? I kind of get why Gwenael exists. He's there to show what the absolute sort of the absolute kind of the fullest effect of Gremmy's visionary power is that Gremmy can create life, independent life. And we know that Gwenael is independent because he tries to attack Gremmy later on. But so that's why he's there, and also it's an excuse for Yachiru to get her Shikai out, which is cool. Speaking of which, that's pretty soon. There we go. Yeah. So again, that's pretty cool, and there's a nice little hint by Isane in the next chapter that she's never seen a Shikai like that before, and I think that's supposed to be an allusion to the fact that Yachiru is actually a Zanpakuto spirit. Yeah, so she's like, I didn't know such a Shikai existed. So yeah, they have a mini fight, Yachiru and Gwenael, which lasts for just a chapter, and then Gwenael's killed off by Gremmy, who arrives, reveals he's the actual Sternritter V, the Visionary, and this is where things get weird. So Gremmy kills Kensei and Rose by basically, if somehow you don't know, Gremmy's ability is to imagine things and they become real. It's a pretty dumb power. It's very broken. And even though it allows Kubo the utmost creativity, one of the biggest flaws of this fight is he's not very creative. It's quite a boring fight, actually, for the most part. But anyway, Isane deduces that Kensei and Rose are actually both dead. Yachiru tries to fight Gremmy, blah, blah, blah. Basically, this is all lead up to the return of Kenpachi, who has been out of the game since volume 59, I think. I'm just checking my volumes. It is 59. So he was actually out of it for a good 50 chapters. And actually some popular characters in this arc do take major breaks from the story. Hitsugaya's not in it for, a good 3 or 4 volumes, I think, after... Well, it might even be longer than that, actually. After Miuri defeats him... No, actually, it's way longer than that. Yeah, Miuri defeats him in 65, I think, and he can't come back until at least 73. So that's pretty nuts. Anyway, Kenpachi shows up. We get a nice little bit here of Kenpachi talking about Unohana. Obviously saying, oh, she's dead. I killed her. Kubo's artwork, of course, can never be faulted. It's completely on point. Yachiru's face when she sees Kenpachi return. Fantastic stuff. It's kind of depressing to think that this is the last you hear of Unohana, I think, for the entire series. It's just like these kind of pages where he talks to Isane. Which is fine, at least she got some kind of closure. But, yeah. Anyway, this volume is all about character development for Kenpachi. Unfortunately, this fight is way, way too long. Way too long. It should not have been this long. And honestly, my favourite parts of the fight are the parts that don't even take place in the fight. We do get cool art. We do get great art. Kenpachi, again, drawn incredibly well. I mean, I'm not going to go into super detail about this fight because it does go on for ages. It's Kenpachi reiterating that he has taken the name Kenpachi from Unohana. Kenpachi technically being the only legitimate Kenpachi heir, despite the fact that there have actually been loads of Kenpachis. Zaraki is the only one who's actually killed the previous Kenpachi properly. So obviously they've all killed each other, but Unohana stayed alive. So therefore, Kenpachi's the only one who's actually the legitimate whatever. Who cares? At the end of the day, I don't really like Kenpachi that much. He's okay in small doses. Unfortunately, Kubo never gives him in small doses. Kenpachi is in this story a lot. And he's just thoroughly uninteresting as a character, in my opinion. But, yeah, fine. So this whole fight is just Kenpachi battling Gremmy. There's an interesting dynamic. Gremmy is this character who needed a backstory and never got one. But there were allusions to the fact that he was locked away his entire life because of his powers. Don't know how he could not just imagine the door or something. But that's Kubo not telling us anything. And so when Gremmy's allowed to step foot on the battlefield for the first time, Kenpachi, this seasoned warrior who loves battle, is basically taking him through the motions, which is actually kind of cool. It does lead to the fight being dragged out. You get some interesting imagery, like this cube of water, for instance, that Kenpachi gets caught in. That's kind of cool. But my major problem with this fight is its pacing. And if you if you reread this fight, seriously, just go back and reread it. It's chapter 573 all the way down to 579. Actually, it might even be up to 580. Is Gremmy alive in 580? No, it's 579. So yeah, for about the first 5 or so chapters, the fight is very slow and very boring, and then suddenly it gets good. Literally, the last maybe 2 chapters of this fight are actually quite good. The pace suddenly ramps up, and then suddenly Gremmy just kills himself. I think Kubo was like, Christ, I've made this fight way too long. Gremmy needs to die. I don't know how to kill him because I've made him invincible. We'll get to all this later. But yeah, so basically Kubo's like, Gremmy has to die. And so Gremmy just kills himself, fight's over. You'll notice it if you read it. Gremmy ramps up slowly as the fight goes, and then suddenly he's like, bam, galaxy room, bam, loads of Gremmys, bam, there's an explosion. And obviously at this point Kenpachi has his Shikai, so the fight actually gets really good. And then it ends. So anyway, the best parts about this fight, in my opinion, are the bits that happen away from the battlefield. So we finally get to see Askin again, being the complete boss that he is, sitting there with a picnic basket, because why not, because he's hilarious. We also get to see Pepe. If you notice, he has a little heart in his speech bubble. That was the first time we had any kind of allusion to his ability, but at this point we thought he might still be cool. So it's, the disappointment hadn't arrived yet. I mean, Askin is just such a great character. Anyway, yeah, like I said, I'm not going to go too nuts into the whole Kenpachi fight because it's just not that interesting. I mean, let me know in the comments below if you think I'm wrong and you really like the Kenpachi Gremmy fight. But I knew going into this volume that that was all it was. So this volume's not great. for that, in my opinion. There's some cool stuff like Gremmy summoning all the artillery there at the bottom. That's pretty neat. But for the most part, it's a very lethargic Kenpachi fight. Kenpachi fights are generally like, oh, I'm going crazy, slashing things up, but obviously Gremmy doesn't have a sword, so there is none of that. So it's basically just Gremmy throwing stuff at Kenpachi and Kenpachi getting rid of it, and then that's it for the first, like, 4 chapters. Obviously it gets a bit nuts when Gremmy decides he's going to bring out a meteor, but again, even that's pretty, not tame per se, but it's just not that interesting, is it really? Because, you know, there's no way in hell the meteor's ever going to hit Soul Society. Gremmy, obviously, this is why Gwenael was there. It's to show that Gremmy can create life, and he creates himself. And his power of imagination is doubled, which makes no sense. But, yeah, so the meteor gets summoned, and Gremmy's going to destroy the world for some reason. Everything is leading up to this. No Zarashi. And yeah, it's a big moment. It is a big moment. Kubo's art is completely on point for this whole sequence where Nozarashi comes out. It is nice to see other Sternritter who we hadn't seen for a little while, like Basby, Askin again, Pepe, Hashwolf taking notice of the meteor. It's funny, there was a big debate when this chapter first came out that this was Hashwolf. It's very clearly Yuha, because his hair is black, apart from the bit on the outside, which is where the light is shining on it. And he's got a big black cape on, so it's quite clearly Yuha. But yeah, Kenpachi goes up against the meteor, Drink Nozarashi, takes it out, and Yachiru disappears. And obviously we get a nice bit of Kenpachi Yachiru stuff, where, you know, she goes away and he says, oh, you know, I don't have a name, and all that sort of flashback. It's nice. And then the fight gets serious, and then it's over again in a chapter. So the fight is not great. It's just a bit boring. It takes up way too much time, and Gremmy doesn't do anything until the very end, where he just kills himself anyway, in one of Kubo's dumbest defeats ever. But yeah, that's basically it. Gremmy turns out to be a brain for some reason, and then yeah, the volume ends with Yachiru disappearing, which to be fair does lead up to something later on, and then the Femritters show up, and the volume ends with the mysterious substitute Shinigami badge, Smoke in the Air. But that's it for 64. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It's really not up there for me. I think it's not that interesting. The Kenpachi stuff's just not, it doesn't do it for me. If you like Kenpachi, you'll love 64. Alright, but that's it for this video, guys. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked it, a thumbs down if you didn't, and please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. But check back again for Volume 65 review, which I do prefer quite a bit. Alright, guys, see you later.